Hello everybody, this is Niclas Huschenbeth and welcome to another game analysis from the Mitropa Cup where I'm playing right now. The Mitropa Cup is a team competition, 10 teams from Middle Europe, Germany is one of them, and I'm playing on board 1 for Germany. And today I played against Hungarian player Oliver Mihok, Grandmaster Oliver Mihok, rated 2550, so Germany played against Hungary. And let's get to the game. And first of all, I'm very proud and very happy to present to you a new design. Oh my god, it just looks much better. Alright, now let's get to the game. I was playing with the black pieces and you can see we're about the same rated, only 20 points apart. My opponent started with e4 and I played the Sicilian, and he didn't go for the open Sicilian here, d4, but he played for bishop b5 check, knight d7, d4 takes, queen takes d4, a6, white gives up the bishop, but he has a little bit better development, and now he plays c4 to get a good grip on the center, knight f6, bishop g5, e6, knight c3. So this was still my preparation here, h6, just asking the bishop where he wants to go, and that looked at bishop e3 here, but my opponent played bishop h4, which I had not looked at. And here I guess I could also play bishop e7 and so on, but there's this maneuver and I quite like this here, to play e5, queen d3, and now play g5, bishop g3, and now this bishop is kind of locked out of the game for now on the king side. So what has happened? I've played e5, that means I gave him the square on d5, but on the other hand I've gained some space here on the king side and the bishop is out of the game. Interesting. Rook to c8, castle, and now I put pressure on the pawn on c4. He goes knight to d2, bishop e6, once again attacking the pawn, b3, and now I play bishop e7. If I go b5 to make use of this pin the pawn cannot take, then he can play rook ac1, because if I now take everything on c4, then at the very end he has a little tactic here, knight d5, and he wins material because of the rook takes c1. He has an intermediate check, another intermediate check, and then he just takes back the rook and he's up a piece. So I played bishop e7, and now b5 is a threat because in the same line the knight would be protected, and this is why I think he played rook ac1, so now I cannot play b5. But now I saw this interesting idea to play on the other side of the board, play h5, threaten to win the bishop, and he played h4, which is correct. If he goes f3, then I push and I can play knight h5, bring my knight to f4, and this is quite pleasant for black, I think. So he played h4 and I played knight to d7. Yeah, maybe not the best move actually here. The computer told me afterwards that it would be better to go knight g4. I looked at this move, but I didn't like knight f3. And I don't want to take on h4 here because the bishop takes and the bishops get traded. But here I can play queen d8 and didn't see this move. And now, okay, also this is quite unclear because white can take everything on g5 and now play f4. And computer also likes this position for white, in fact. By the way, the engine bar is turned off because that would take too much of a toll on my computer. So, not so clear. Maybe it's actually better, this position for white. So I played knight d7. I quite liked my position here, in fact. Played knight d7, threatening to take on h4. And here, okay, we both missed this. He can play knight d5. And after bishop takes, he takes not with the c-pawn because then he can take his rook, but with the e-pawn. And the point is, usually the structure is nice for me, but here white will be able to open up the position with f4. For example, if I take on h4, bishop h2, and he'll play f4, and my king will start feeling uncomfortable in the center. So we just both missed this idea here completely. I could play queen d8, but also doesn't look that pretty here. So he played knight f3. Now I push g4, and he plays the knight actually to h2. He could also play it somewhere else, but played to h2, so I guess it's not in the way of his pieces. On the other hand, of course, it's out of the game on h2. And here, this was my idea. Now I want to go after this pawn on h4, which cannot be protected, defended anymore. But on the other hand, this bishop is defending a pawn on d6, so I don't want to take quite yet. And I played rook c6 to defend my pawn. And to take on h4 next move. Now he went knight d5. And now I took. And here I expected him to go knight b4. But he played queen e3, which is also very interesting. After knight b4, I wanted to play rook b6. First off, I can repeat moves here if I want to. And I was considering to take on d5, even though it seems that my rook is a little bit too much out of the game here, and maybe I shouldn't do this. The computer gives an interesting suggestion here, which is knight c5, attacking the queen, and now to play g3. Didn't see this at all. The point is that I'm now just sacrificing the exchange, and I would have nice compensation here. Very interesting computer line. Anyways, he didn't play knight b4. He played queen e3, and he has some ideas to get into my position with queen a7. And this was quite uncomfortably over the board to solve. White actually has enough compensation here for the pawn. I should probably just come back with the queen, and then white would be able to repeat moves. I could take, but once again my rook would be out of the game, so a repetition would be the logical end to a game here. I play rook c8 to defend against queen a7, just in case, and I can go rook b8 or knight c5. But he played knight b6. This is the move I allowed, and I only saw this after I played rook c8, and it's a good move. Or, well, yeah. I can play rook c6 back, but this doesn't really do much, so I took on b6 and play queen e7 back. He's attacking both pawns. Queen e7. And now I thought he would take with the queen on d6, but rook takes d6 is stronger and also more uncomfortable for me, because at this point I was pretty low on time already, unfortunately, with still 40 moves to make to the time control, and the position is quite complex, not easy to play, especially for black. If he takes with the queen, then in this endgame I'm doing quite fine. I want to go rook c6 here, and maybe I can press a little bit more comfortable for black. But rook takes c6. And I thought I can just start an attack now with h4, but h4 actually is too early. I should improve my king position first. But I played h4, he goes knight f1. And now I play king f8. Here he could have done something else. He could have done something like this, because he has the idea to sacrifice the exchange. We both missed this, I guess. And then to take on g4, which is quite strong. So something like this. And he has one pawn, also the e5 pawn is weak. Quite interesting sacrifice. So he played knight f1, and now I play king f8. I want to improve the position of my king. On e8 it's just not good. And this was decent, bringing the king to g7. Of course, there it's also in the way, but the king has to be somewhere on the board. Now he goes knight e3, and here, yeah, I mean the position is just really difficult to play for black. I played g3, which is possible. h3 was also good, probably better. And then after g3, which I didn't see, is to play rook c6 now. And the point is to be able to play queen f6 without white having knight f5 check. So I trade a rook, and now white cannot even take on c6 because queen f6 with various threats would be very uncomfortable. And here white should defend. And now it's kind of a curious situation where both sides seemingly cannot make any progress, because white has to keep f2 protected and cannot win these pawns, because then there's always h2. So this seems to be just a positional draw here. Okay, I played g3. This looked good to me. But now he goes knight f5 check. I have to take. Now f6 threat, so I go queen g5. Attack the pawn. He gives a check on f6. And I play king h6. I could also go to g6. He will take on b7 as well. And what I didn't realize here is that this endgame gives me enough counterplay. I thought I'm a pawn down here. He has these connected passed pawns, but I have enough counterplay here. Play king f5, play rook c g8, and with the two rooks I get enough play and should be a draw. Not obvious to me, but computer tells us this is the case. So I play king h6 to get out of a check on e4 and also to get out of the g file. Queen takes b7. And now I took on f2. And yeah, like I said, I was pretty low on time. Not a comfortable situation here, being a pawn down now and having to prove my compensation. Position is fine for black. One possible line would be to go rook h8, a move I didn't see at all. The point is white cannot take twice because of back rank checkmate. And if he doesn't do that, he has to somehow defend against rook takes d6, which is actually not that easy. For example, he can play like this, and here I would get enough play against his king, and it should be a draw. Okay. So I took on f2, he took back. Now I played rook hg8, queen f3 to defend, and here I made a mistake. I played rook g6. I was first looking at e4, which is the correct move, but I only looked at rook ce8 here, with the idea of bringing the rook to e5, threatening rook f5. And first I thought this was good, but then I saw rook d5. I was like, I should not do this. Here I'm lost, just 2 pawns down. But instead of rook c8, I can go check and now bring the rook to g4, which is actually quite a strong attack for black. White has to be precise here, but then it would lead to a draw as well. Check, king g1, queen h4, threatening queen h1, but white is in time to give a check and bring the queen to h3, and it should be equal. Yeah, anything but trivial, of course. So I missed I played rook g6 to have an eye on this pawn to prepare rook g8, but here my opponent could have gotten an advantage with king g1. Actually, after king g1 I planned e4 to now play rook e8 and then play rook e3, get something going here, but what I missed and what the computer points out, rook d8 is a very uncomfortable move for black here, threatening checkmate on h8. Very unfortunate. I think king h7. White even... What does white do here? Does he even go rook d7? Maybe he goes... I don't know. Maybe he even goes rook 1 d7, threatening rook takes f7. Because rook e1, king f2 doesn't seem to lead anywhere. Yeah, this is quite unfortunate for black. Anyways, my opponent played rook h1 pretty quickly. And... yeah, my clock was ticking down here. It was not good, and the best move is rook to d8, which I did not see. Very nice deflection here. If white takes, black takes on f6. White can actually try rook takes h4, but black takes back with check. This is kind of funny. King e2, rook takes f3, check, and now the rook endgame would be equal. Okay, I realized here that if I go rook cg8 as I had planned, then he wants to go g3, which is a nice move, and making use of this pin, and if I take everything, then I will lose, because he'll take my rook next move. Actually, this variation still continues if I go e4 here, but I didn't see this move. And this would be a rook endgame, which is better for white, but honestly it's quite unclear, of course, still. I played e4 right away, and also missing his reply here, but like I said, my time was really low, and he played queen e3, and he can just pin the queens and get into rook endgame, which is quite promising for him. And here I made another mistake. I took the pawn on g2. I should go rook g4, but also then it's going to be difficult to hold this endgame. Even though rook endgames have drawing tendency, and with two rooks it's even more complicated, but white is up a pawn, and these pawns are quite good on the queen side. Anyways, I took king g5, rook h7. Now this was the 40th move, last move to make the time control. Had about a minute on the clock, and I made the best move here, king f5. Important move to pose problems for white, because otherwise I would just lose. And it's important to have counterplay and still have this passed pawn on e4. And now my opponent actually made a mistake. And after this mistake, the position is not winning anymore for him. It's not so simple here because I have counterplay with the 2 rooks, but he should take the pawn on f7. Now my pawn was to give a check, and then he cannot go to d4 because of checkmate on d3. So he has to go to a second rank, and here the point to see is that he can go king d2 and then defend like this. So this was my idea, to bring the rook to the second rank, but he can play king d2, king c2, and then bring the rook in between, and he is winning, especially also because he has this one far advanced pawn on f6. So this was the way to win. But after rook takes a6, it is already, I think, a draw. Now I give a check, king has to go to f2, or to second rank at least, and now I play rook cg8, which actually, yeah, it's fine. It is fine. But I did not see why it is fine. Rook c3 was also a move, but rook cg8 is fine. During the game, he played rook a5, but I was quite worried about rook h5. Because now after king f4 he gives another check, and I calculated this, and this is why I didn't play it, but here I think that white is winning, because after rook a7 I'm not in time. This is quite unfortunate. So I check, rook d2, like this, rook d1, this, e2, and now it's very sad, because after f7 I cannot stop this pawn and white wins. And I think there's no improvement in this line. But the computer points out that I can go to e5, and then if now white takes on e4, I actually have a perpetual. It's quite cute. King just cannot escape. Because if the king goes to e5, then I play rook e8 and win the rook. Yeah, very nice. So he played rook a5 instead. Now I shouldn't take on f6 because there's rook h6 check, and after king e7 he wins the pawn on e4, and this would be bad news. But I can go to e6, and now he doesn't have a check. And I threaten rook f3 followed by rook g2 immediate perpetual, so he goes king e2. Now if I give a check here, he can come forward, so I play rook f3, threatening rook g2 once again, and he plays rook h2, defending against it. Makes sense. And here I took an f6. But it would be best to play rook gg3, which I looked at, but yeah, somehow I didn't play it. But it makes sense because there's the idea to play rook c3, and there are always checks on the third rank, and black has enough counterplay here. For example, king d2, rook c3, rook d5, king takes f6. I also have now connected past pawns, and black has enough counterplay. This should be a draw. But I took on f6 right away, because I also thought he's threatening to go rook f2. So I took on f6, but now he also has this check. Once again, I cannot go to e7 because of rook e5, so I go to g7. And now he made a mistake. He should try rook h5, which I thought he would do. And yeah. It's a weird position. I want to go f6 to cover g5 and to play king g6 and f5 next. But now what I didn't see, I can play this move to offer a trade of rooks. Well, actually I don't quite understand this now that I look at it. Why can't I take and play king g6? This looks fine. I mean, now that I get my pawn to f5, it looks fine to me. Nah, not sure. That's just very complicated. Maybe that's just possible here. Anyways, rook h5 seems like a better try, because after rook g5 check, king takes h6, rook takes g8, we reach this position, and my pawns are far enough advanced that I have enough counterplay here. It gets actually quite sharp, and also it can get tricky for white, as we'll see. He pushes, and at this point we both were again low on time. I maybe had 6, 7, 8 minutes left, and he a little bit less. So I push f4, and now he goes rook g4, and I push, check, and he goes king f2, check, king e3, check, f2, rook f4, e3, and it's a race here. c6, he pushes, rook e1, c7, and of course super sharp, but I can go just e2. Crazy position, of course. And here he surprised me. He did not queen. He played rook h4 check. But he can't just queen, actually. This would have been simplest. Rook d1 check, and here what I expected, but what he had missed was that he can go king c4. So the king has to go, pretty much has to go to the c file, because if you go here, then I can queen with check. So king c4. And now after rook c1, the king can come to d3. And if I take on c8 now, I can take on e2, and I'm not queening. But I can play a cute move here, e1 knight check, and then he moves his king, doesn't matter, and I take the queen, he takes the pawn, and my knight is not trapped. I can play knight c2, and it is a draw. So this is what I expected. Actually also here, well, we'll see something similar like this in the game. This is also a draw after king c5. We'll see something very similar in the game. So, yeah. So c8 queen would be simplest here for white to make a draw. But he played rook h4 check, king g5, and rook g4 check. Now I felt like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Maybe I'm getting somewhere here. But, okay, I play king h5. If I take, it's also interesting because it's not a perpetual immediately. I can hide with my king on f1, and he has to be precise here. He has to play queen c4 to pin my pawn. And now I can try rook c1. But it turns out as here white gives an immediate perpetual, unfortunately. I cannot get out of the checks. So this is a draw. But also an interesting try. But I play king h5. And now he queened. And because he gave these checks with the rook, which was not necessary, I have some other options here. But I went for rook d1 check. Here also f1 queen would be possible because he doesn't have a checkmate immediately. This is important. And his rook is kind of in an awkward place. But here he can just give up his rook actually, and this is a perpetual. I cannot get out of the checks. Cannot get out. If I play queen g2, he takes the rook on e1. So a draw. So I played rook d1, and now he goes king c5, so you can bring the rook in between. And I gave another check here on c1. I really considered queen f1 here, f1 queen. But I was worried about queen e6, threatening mate, and at this point the match was tied. And I didn't want to lose, that was for sure. And I was really unsure about this position. Turns out this is actually winning if I play queen f2 and then I go rook d6, because I'll force the trade of the rooks, and then this setup is good, and there's no perpetual here, and sooner or later I will get a queen. But as my opponents had also seen, which I had not seen, white can play a different move here, and this is the way to draw rook c4, guarding against a check here. And now white is threatening to give checks here, and yeah, fantastically this worked. One sample line to show you guys, check, check, and I can actually give up the rook here to defend against the checks, but it's quite unfortunate. Now white can play rook c5 and win the queen back. Funnily enough, as the computer tells me, black makes a perpetual here now himself. Okay. Oh well. So I played rook c1 because I knew for sure I would not lose this. Rook c4 takes, and now I can choose which pawn to queen. But I queened with the f1 because it felt like I cover more checks. But this is a draw. But white has to be still precise, and he has to start giving checks from behind. Queen h8. And then it will be a draw, as we'll also see in the game. But after queen e8, I'm winning here. And yeah, and 3 moves in a row, I should play king h4. And we'll see, well, the point why in a moment. So we made some mistakes here. We were low on time, but yeah. still, should have played king h4. Play king g5. Now white needs to give a check on g8, I think. But you play queen e5, which is another mistake. Again, I should go king h4 and wins, king g4. And here, white needs to once again give checks from behind. Gave a check here. And now for some reason I play king f4. I thought somehow I could run towards there. But this is just nonsense. He gave a check here. And now I realize I have to try something else, but here he didn't give me another chance. He gave check on g6, and we'll see this in a moment. But what I need to do here, here actually king h4 is not winning, but king g3 is winning here. And the point is he doesn't get a perpetual here. I can bring my king to g1 and then move my queen in between. And this is still a long way to win, because it's really tricky to get out of the checks and to get the pawn queening eventually, but black makes progress, and sooner or later he can get in a position where either forces a trade of queens or white doesn't have a check and black wins. But after king f4 it's a draw, because here I'm just not getting out of the checks anymore. And yeah, going here, which was somewhat my plan, does not do anything, because here this is what I missed. I thought king c2 and I win, but he comes back to c3 and he just gives checks, and I can win a pawn, but it doesn't matter, it's a perpetual. So yeah, the problem is here I can run to g1, but if I go queen g2, queen e1, I actually have to go queen f1, because after king h2 I'm risking to lose here, because he goes king d3 and wins the pawn. So yeah, I just cannot get out of the checks, and then I offered a draw here, which of course was accepted. Roller coaster game. First I was doing okay. Actually, I was more optimistic about my position than I should have been. It was about equal, and yeah, then I was too low on time, made some mistakes, and we reached this, lost Rook Endgame, but on the 41st move my opponent gave the win away, and from then on, yeah, it was about equal, really complicated of course, and in the end just crazy lines, and then at the very end I had the chance, but just couldn't quite finish it. And I think the draw is a decent result here, considering how the game went. So just a great fight and interesting game. That's what I want to share with you. We played 2-2 in the end against Hungary, and we are in 4th place right now. So let me know if you have any questions, and then I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.